Now, I would like to draw your attention to this. Why does such a thing happen, or such things happen? Why do you think people indulge in this kind of thing? Duplicate publication. This is 2003 issue of New England Journal of Medicine, notice of duplicate publication. Why do people indulge in this kind of thing? What is this unethical practice called? Redundant publication. Why do they do it? Deep inside they will always know, after all, I just published this twice. It's not going to give him any self-esteem. But why do they do? Because publications increase, it helps to pad up your CV. It increases your publicity that you get, and then it may bring promotion, publish or perish, that kind of attitude. So people indulge in this kind of duplicate publication. What happens when you publish something, say 3 times? What happens? What is the damage that it is doing? When you publish anything more than once, what is the damage? If it's not detected, it will be picked up. If the methodology is good and everything, it will be picked up every time they want to do a meta-analysis, because it will be a good trial, so it will be picked up. And when all these duplicate trials are there, say triplicate or duplicate trials are added onto the good works, what happens is, when you calculate the number needed to treat, NNT, that comes down. Number needed to treat comes down. And when the number needed to treat comes down, what does it imply? The drug or the chemical entity is more efficacious. So you are, complicating issues, deceiving the public. So it should never do this. This is a code of conduct for contributors to biomedical journals. Is it only for contributors? This code of conduct, even it should be for editors. Any? Yes? Reviewers? Anybody else? Publisher? What about the owners of journals? Recently you heard, somebody in USA was fired by the owner, one editor, because he didn't comply by his instructions on publication. Now this is every single case of fraud and misconduct reduces the public confidence. You can add in science, abuses the use of public and charitable funds, and causes insult and frustration to majority of careful, honest workers and readers. It reduces the confidence of all the stakeholders in published materials. Now, I have copied one from the statement by the American Physics Association, that is, says, I liked it, each physicist is a citizen of the community of science. Now, this we can easily modify to include, at least us, the medical doctors. All you have to do is each physician and is a citizen of the community of, let's say, medicine. Each shares the responsibility for the welfare of this community. This is from the American Physics Association. Ethical issues are not just only in biological science, but also in engineering, in all kinds of sciences, management science, everywhere. Now, this is from Harvey Markovich, who is a big guy in the BMJ as well as in British publishing establishments. Now, he said honesty and integrity are essential if patients are to be protected and science validated. Authors, editors, publishers, and sponsors are all responsible to make sure that this happens. Now, what is the definition of a research misconduct, and proposed by the British Consensus Panel in 1999? Behavior by a researcher, intentional or not, that falls short of good ethical and scientific standards. Now, let us see the unethical issues that can be there in the first thing of manuscript submission. Number one, the rule is I am telling you what not to do, proscribing rather than prescribing. Don't submit to more than one journal at a time. Now, the final version should have been read by all the authors. Make sure that the final version do not sit in your office or in your study and finalize the thing and send. Final version should have been read by all the authors, and then do not submit without the consent and knowledge. Written consent of all the authors is taken, because if later there is any problem, somebody should not disassociate himself or herself from the project. Now, on authorship, you have just now heard in that role play, it should be based only on substantial contribution to the conception and design or acquisition of data or analysis and interpretation of data, drafting the article or revising it critically for important intellectual content, and final approval of the version to be published. Now, all these conditions should be met. If one is to claim an authorship, all these conditions should be compulsorily met. Unethical practices in authorship, you just saw it in the role play, not giving authorship to those who have made a significant intellectual contribution. Has it ever happened to any one of you? It's common, no? In fact, the ethical violations happen upwards of 25 to 33% in every area of research and publication. Giving authorship to those when they have not made significant intellectual contribution. This is a very common. Guest authorship, no? Gift authorship. Refusing to take public responsibility for the study or at least particular section of the study after the publication. This we have had some experience of our senior professor telling us that, well, I just lent my name, I didn't know that the candidate did all this kind of unethical things. So, when it is published, when it is exposed, then the person says that I never knew. A manuscript must present the truth, nothing but the truth, and the whole truth. Can you tell me where recently, say within the last 3 years, something where the guy, you see, a half truth can be more dangerous in research than a lie, a half truth. What happened with the Rafik was they published they submitted to the FDA half truth, not the whole truth, and then lots of people lost their lives. Okay, so half truth can be more dangerous than a blatant lie. Intentionally hiding crucial information is one of the unethical practices when you make a manuscript. Making false statements, that is called falsification. Intentional alteration of data. Misquoting others' work. Not quoting previous important works. Too many self-citations. Publishing photographs of patients without consent. Not concealing the identity of patients in the text as well as in the photographs. You know this the famous thing that happened in the 60s where the Time magazine went through they didn't have any access to medical records, but something about President Kennedy's operation had been put in and then they checked they got it from the hospital, not the case records, but they knew a gentleman who was 6'2" in height and such things. At the same time, by the same group of surgeons he was operated, and so they concluded it was President Kennedy. And then they wrote, by the time he was elected, had it been exposed before he got elected, he would never have been elected. And they said he is an Addisonian. He cannot, Addisonians cannot usually face stress. So, not fit to be the president. So you have to sufficiently anonymize things. Competing interest or conflicting interest, conflict of interest. It has been estimated that something like about 65% of the editors have some kind of conflict of interest. And there is absolutely nothing wrong in having conflict of interest. The thing is, the most important thing is, you must reveal it. Okay, that is the important thing. There is absolutely, all of us have some conflict of interest. There is absolutely nothing wrong. It is a natural thing. But when we are in the publishing business, we have to reveal it. So this is the definition: a set of conditions in which professional judgment concerning a primary interest, such as patient's welfare or the validity of research, tends to be unduly influenced by a secondary interest, such as financial gain. It is a condition, not a behavior. Where your thinking will be clouded. This is what, in an analogy, I can tell you that most of the doctors don't treat their near and dear ones. When our parents are ill or something, we don't treat. We take them to somebody, a trusted colleague. Why? Because our intellect will be clouded by our attachment. So that constant conflict between these two, your decisions, your judgments may not be correct. So there is nothing wrong in having conflict of interest. It is only a condition. What are the different types of personnel? It can be political, it can be financial, it can be commercial, or it can be academic. But the most important, most of the time it is financial. So I will go into financial. What are the financial conflicts of interest? Research. I may get research funding from a pharmaceutical company. I may have patents I may have employment, maybe me or my children may be employed, or my wife may be employed in that particular thing. Stock or share ownership, consultancies, payment for lectures, etc. So can you tell me what is the most powerful force under the sun? The most powerful force under the sun. The power of the purse. Okay, that's why this is very important, the power of the purse. Now we leave this and go on to yet another aspect of this, plagiarism. Stealing of others' ideas and contents of a paper, written or illustrative material, and passing it as one's own. Copying large portions verbatim from other papers is plagiarism, even if the references are given. And avoid redundant publications for obvious reasons I discussed in the beginning itself. Now what about, you see, myself and Ananthakrishnan, we have already decided. He is the director, I am the dean of the particular college. So we will be getting all authorships. Because you are first. Okay. Is it necessary to acknowledge your dean and director? No, not. It is the routine duty of a dean and director to encourage research. So there is no need to. Don't acknowledge routine work or duty. Never. No need to acknowledge. Whereas we find everywhere, my thanks to the dean and the director. Now media relations. Now this is a very tricky thing. There are many, I have found quite a few, some of them good fellows also. They rush to the media and it comes first in the lay media even before it comes in any good scientific work, any kind of scientific work has no place in the lay media. Only after it is published in the professional journal only it should be quoted by these guys. Never go in for media contact before your paper is published. Avoid holding press conferences to publicize. And previous publication of an abstract during the proceedings of meeting does not prevent subsequent publication of the complete paper. Now, I would like you to please tell me the kind of ethical violations that are there in this. I am giving some cases. You read. You agree it is unethical? What is the unethical thing he has done? Hiding part of the data. Okay? Misleading people.
See, this yesterday's paper, coping with misconduct in Indian science. So he asked a very relevant question. Now, if you commit some fraud, now what will happen? Okay, today you might escape, but then now it is not for long. So there maybe say Indian government again might set up something, and then you maybe say debarred from some this thing, or you may not be getting fundings. So in USA there is this thing called Office of Scientific Integrity. Research integrity, Office of Research Integrity, and it can go into any researcher's room, and then they can task your record and this thing, and if they find you guilty, or if they find that you committed some fraud, then you won't get any funds from NIH or some other funding agencies. You won't get any funds, and your institute will take action against you. So in India, there is no such system. Currently it is not existing, but with this kind of articles, please read this. Indian government will also very soon might set up something, and the researcher will be in trouble. Okay, thank you.
You have read about R.B. Singh, no? The guy who published about 6 papers in BMJ between 92 and 96. And when he was confronted for the raw data, he said, all eaten up by termites. They were all kept in Delhi. He must have been a very clever fellow to publish all those, write up all those papers and publish it in BMJ. Diet and myocardial infarction, 4 or 5 papers. R.B. Singh. And he said that organization where he did the research was owned by his family. And then they asked for the raw data. He said it's all eaten up by termites. So the next one, this is what happened with our journal. This is simple, what is called fabrication. You manufacture data. You alter, that is falsification. This is fabrication. Okay. Again, not allowed. This already we have discussed under references and all that. Not allowed. When you take verbatim large areas, you have to indent. Routine duty, you can acknowledge, not authorship. Maybe you can acknowledge.
Okay, this is a real incident, and this involved me also. The researcher was me. Okay, I was working in a department, and there were, I completed my work. I wrote up the paper. I included her name also, but I gave it to head of the department for going through this thing, correction and this thing. Head of the department simply struck up the name. I didn't know what to do. I didn't go and tell her that your name is not there. The paper got published. And then she came to know. She came and asked me, I know that in the draft my name was there, then what happened? I told her, I'm sorry, I gave it to head of the department. He struck off your name, and then, well, I didn't tell you, I'm sorry. Then she went and told number 2, number 3 in the department, the faculty members. They went and talked to the head of the department. They said, this is not right. She should be given authorship. In the second paper, my work involved, it was a bit lengthy work. When I produced the second paper, her name appeared in that one. Well, I do not know whether it is correct or not. Well, this is what happened.
When we employ research nurse, or when you employ people to go epidemiological research, go from place to place, ask for this thing. For those things, not necessary. You can acknowledge.
No, the thing is, say whether there was any intellectual contribution of her. That is what you have to see.
There was no. She is given a, protocol, and she'll maybe take the blood pressure every 3 hours, give the drug. Okay, right? Now coming to the case number 5, what do you feel about this? Conflict of interest. After reading it, and when you read that, he's attached to Glaxo or this thing, you feel cheated, Suddenly you feel cheated. And what about, if there is a drug that is already licensed and then somebody finds out, like sildenafil, they found out that it can be used in persistent pulmonary hypertension in pediatric patients. And so somebody in Kerala, I think, they used it and he got into trouble. Because when you are using an established drug for a new use, you have to go back to the drug controller and get a permission, a written permission for doing that. This again, we have said that not allowed, prematurely going to the press. This happened when I was the member secretary of a particular ethics committee. He said, I'm not doing any research, it's an exercise. Even if you are asking questions only, okay, even that questionnaire has to be submitted to the ethics committee and cleared by them. Okay, it's very important even for this is that authorship thing, no? That complete responsibility for all the parts, taking responsibility for all the parts. Very important. Importance of documenting. You have to get written permission. You have to get written permission. And then the patient photograph, you must anonymize, put mask, whatever, and make sure that nobody can recognize her.
Previously, journals are generally read only by the medical fraternity. So this kind of problems don't come up. This is becoming more common because many journals have an online edition and some of them are free. I mean, anyone can go, or after some few months, 6 months or so, anyone can this thing. So there is a lot of problems. People are tending to, face lot of problems. So this kind of problems will even increase in the future. So you have to be very careful if you are using patient's identity.
So how can we avoid trouble? This is courtesy Harvey Markovich. Avoiding trouble. Obtain patient consent and ethics approval. Make sure that you have written approval. Include results of all studies, outcomes and assessments. Don't, publicize in parts, selectively, so that you get some conclusion that is not get at the truth. You will get fame, but you will never get at the truth. Distinguish primary planned from secondary post hoc analysis. This is the criticism about that rofecoxib work. The study was planned for finding out whether daily intake of rofecoxib by elderly patients prevented colonic carcinoma, but in between they found that there was an increased mortality, cardiovascular mortality in them. So they had to prematurely stop because it would have been unethical to continue with the thing. But then the conclusions drawn from that was criticized because the study was not meant for the purpose. Okay. Use intention to treat technique. Be prepared to provide the protocol if asked for. Check your work. Report actual numbers as well as percentages. Get advice about statistical methods. Like already it's been brought out. Stats to indicate variance, standard deviation, confidence intervals and probability, that is p-values. Agree on authorship before submission. In fact, it should be decided when you are making that protocol planning stage itself. You should decide who all will get and what is the sequence. Yeah.
I have a problem in authorship. Nowadays, most of the employer, they ask about the citation index of the paper, what we have published, how many people have cited it. So accordingly, people, what they have done, they make 2 groups or 3 groups. They cite my paper, I cite their paper. So how, if it is unethical, how it can be controlled that?
The citation.
That is definitely unethical, but then how to control it? No, it's only self-control. Self-control only will be this thing. Self-regulation.
That would be very rare, is it not? That both of you are working on more or less the same field where the other's work is relevant. If you are working on a different field, just because your friend has to be cited, you cannot cite that work. I think that would be very, very rare occasion.
No, but if there are 2 groups are working the same problem, maybe in different institutes, they know each other very well. They may be colleagues earlier also. But now what they are doing, they are taking the same paper, reference, and they are putting there, and both are getting benefit.
If they publish, they give authorship to the other. So every paper will have all the PhD students' names. So by the time they pass out, they have 5-6 papers.
Yes.
Depending on all this is unethical, but many HODs turn a blind eye. But this is purely unethical because somebody doesn't do other work, but they will say, okay, he helped me with the data analysis, he helped me with data entry, some rubbish like this, but it's unethical.
Again,
The point is, it is very difficult to disprove. If they make statement now, he helped me in this thing, it is very difficult to disprove. So only self-regulation only can be the solution.
Also, if somebody is working and he cites your work and it's relevant work, and it doesn't happen every day of the thing, I don't know what is the objection.
It's fine, but it may be of casual nature. If it is having regularly, if you see the publication of that scientist, he have quoted about 15 times of a paper, and the same vice versa, then there is a question of affinity of having publication, giving citation index, that level.
But when you go to Google Scholar and get the citations and click on that and you find most of the citations are from one group, then it will be automatically found out, is it not?
okay, now be very sure about attribution and also copyright release, otherwise you can get into problems. Do not pre-publish like in university website, etc., etc. Again, you will be charged with redundancy. Always choose a single target journal. Choose a single target journal. And declare conflict of interest as advised by the journal. And here I'm telling you all the famous journals, New England Journal, BMJ, JAMA, Annals of Internal Medicine, all that, 3,642 papers. They analyzed and found that only 1.2% of the authors, that is only 42 or 52 of them declared conflict of interest, although about 60% of them had some conflict of interest or other. So there is nothing wrong, you cannot declare it, you don't lose anything, but the readers have a right to know, has this fellow got anything to do with. And these are some useful sources of advice on ethical issues.